Greetings, my friends, from wherever you're tuning in, whenever you're tuning in. I cannot say good morning. I cannot say good afternoon. I cannot say good evening. I cannot say good night because I don't know what time of day it is for you when you're tuning in, but I will say hello. My name is Chris Jones. I have the proud privilege of serving as the executive director for the Virginia Association for Teaching, Learning, and Leading. Becca and I are co hosting these short snippets over the next couple of however many. I am not committing, Becca. You will not get me to commit on this podcast episode, but I know we've got a series of three where we are putting a timer on and having a 10-minute conversation around a centralized question. I'll give the question in just a second. Becca, this is your podcast channel, but when's the last time you told your people what you do and actually what you're up to currently?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's been a while. Let me tell everyone. Hi everyone. I wanted Chris to start this episode because we're truly co-hosting this episode, a series of three debates. So I'm Becca Silver. Those of you that have been tuning in and listening, you've heard the sound of my voice as you've been driving to work or walking your dog. I am the CEO and founder of The Whole Educator. And what I do is I work with schools all around the US and districts all around the US and internationally. And I work with coaches and leaders to better support teachers in a human centered way. And in the last couple of years at The Whole Educator, we've been focusing and specializing in resistance to change. So, again, if you've been listening to the episodes, you've been hearing me talk about resistance and going beyond buy in, and something that Chris has really influenced me on. But before Chris, you and I were talking about buy-in, I definitely had the belief that we need to go beyond buy-in, but your framework, your continuum, the levels of engagement continuum has given me language to describe why buy-in is not the goal. Buy-in is not the goal. We want to go beyond buy-in. We want to go into ownership, commitment, and leadership. And so I'll put the link to that episode where Chris goes deeper into that. But man, that continuum has like totally shifted my language around going beyond buy-in. So I specialize that as well in that as well. Yeah, so that's what I do through my academy and coaching and keynote speaking, and currently writing a book. Chris and I were talking about that before we started recording. So keep your eye
I
out for
wasn't
that.
sure if you were gonna mention the book. I was gonna
Yeah.
put you on the spot. Are you working on a special project?
I am, and the published date is summer, beginning of summer. So
It'll be a hot commodity.
that
Not to dad joke it.
was 100% dad joke, Chris.
That's good.
So Chris and I are debating today. We love to disagree, agree with each other, and push each other on different topics about coaching and leadership. And today we are going to debate about whether resistance is healthy. We have no idea how the other person feels about it. So I'm really excited to do this. And those listening, at the end of this debate, there is no right answer that we come up with. There's no winner in this. We are going to sit in the gray area and in the tension between is it healthy or not. And we'll probably leave this conversation with more questions than answers. So, Chris, are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready to get into it.
Okay. Those of you watching on YouTube, you're going to see a timer. We are going to use a timer to keep us on track. We have 10 minutes to debate this. All right, let's get started.
I think
What
you
do you,
should go first.
you think I should go first? I want to hear your thoughts. I talk about resistance all the time.
Okay, all right. So you are the queen of resistance. I don't know if that's a badge of honor or a badge of disgrace. The queen, here comes the queen of resistance. But I think your ideas and your work around resistance and understanding that resistance can be perceived as an obstacle to success or to goal attainment. I never thought about before you asked the question and before I really thought about the value of resistance, I would have told you that resistance is a negative thing and should be avoided at all cost or mow through or convince and cajole and build consensus and build a shared understanding and shared vision and like, oh no, there's a way. But I think two things. I do think that resistance is healthy. Let me
Hmm.
just say that right out. Resistance is coming from a place that needs further understanding. I think resistance also comes out, I won't say it's always, but the way I'm perceiving it is without a healthy culture where there can be some give and take, there can be some, viewing things through from a different perspective. There can be, well, have we thought about, or here are the unintended consequences. When there are real conversations around input and feedback, I think a healthy culture invites resistance because we've got to figure out I love the way you describe unmet needs. We've got to figure out from others' perspectives because if we've got people who are going to be doing this work, we've got to have a deeper understanding. And I think resistance is the red flag for needing a deeper understanding or further exploration. The thing that I do appreciate about resistance, I don't always appreciate resistance. And let me say this, the times I don't appreciate resistance, I know that is my ego experiencing the resistance and not somebody who is for the betterment of the organization. But when resistance is present, it's a key indicator that something's not right. Something is amiss, something is awry that needs further exploration and further understanding before we can move forward.
Hmm.
So I do think resistance is
Resistance
actually
is
healthy.
healthy. Okay, I when I talk about this, I am going to talk about something. I'm going to answer a slightly different question, then I'll go into this question. I want to acknowledge that when teachers are resisting, when we are bringing initiatives that further instruction in classrooms and impact students in a positive way, and we have teachers not doing that, right? We have a teacher lecturing for 45 minutes and then, and then making kids sit silently for another hour and then letting them go, right? If students are not learning as much as they can, um, in classrooms, there's an impact when teachers are resisting change, especially when change is something very positive and important for student outcomes. So I want to acknowledge that there's an impact, right? And is resistance healthy? And I love that you named culture, right? So resistance can be a symptom of an unhealthy culture, right? And within a healthy culture, yes, resistance is healthy because it is a sign of engagement versus compliance. And I like to make that distinction. And I know you talked about engagement as well, but like really naming, right? Do we want, and in my workshops, I always say, what if you went to your staff and you said, we're going to be implementing this change now? And everyone said, oh, okay. And they all went back to their classrooms and they all did it. What would you call that? Right. And be like, what's compliance? And I always have like snarky school leaders be like, it's utopia, like have like funny things to say about it. But the fact is that would be compliance for a lot of people, right? Like, okay, you told me to do it, I'm going to do it, which is in our staffs, we have compliant people, not a problem. But some of our staff are really engaging with the change, and that grappling can look like resistance. And we want people to be critically thinking about the changes we're asking them to implement.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I mean, just to build on what you're saying there is that if there is, it's like let's use a scientific metaphor or analogy, like friction, right? Friction exists to be healthy,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
What if we had no friction? We couldn't use the brakes in our car,
Yeah.
right? Like
Be
we
floating. Yeah.
literally couldn't walk.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if there were no friction, things that we thought would be easy. Oh, if I didn't have friction or if I didn't have any, then we could just mow right through it and go through. But in the same sense of what you're talking about, if there is no friction, if we say we're going to do this and everyone's like, okay, we go do this,
Mhm.
then we never really explore, investigate, consider, and respond to the what will ultimately be best for our people and then indirectly for our students. And so when we can think critically, when we can push back respectfully, when we can ask questions, and when we can have a deeper conversation about it, it only leads to better outcomes. Because if we don't get that opportunity, then the person making decision might not have done that critical thinking either. Like,
Hmm.
whoa, I didn't think about that. Or
Hmm.
because how many times have we made decisions or we've implemented something without the consideration of the unintended consequences and it backfires? Then
Hmm.
we've got to backtrack and say, okay, what was going to be our big initiative for the 26-27 school year, we're now not going to do. Instead, we're going to do this thing. And now, like, now we've got a little whiplash of what we're doing because we either didn't take the time to get that shared understanding in place and to aim for commitment and to build build up to that. But we also didn't take the time, not just for the input, but also for the feedback.
Yeah. And I want to say this. There's a couple things I want to say about it. One thing is when I have worked with teachers that are experiencing resistance and coaches that are experiencing resistance as well to my coaching, I grow. I grow when I am working with someone that's like, well, the thing I usually do isn't working.
Yeah,
What do I do now? And I have to go like think about it and talk to colleagues and do some investigation and create a whole new way of doing it and thinking about it. And it is those moments that people are resisting my coaching that I grow the most often.
yeah, yeah. When you're when when we're talking about change, when we're ultimately talking about moving somebody off their spot.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
when you're moving somebody off their spot and they refuse to move,
Yeah.
resistance,
Yeah.
then somebody's going to move,
Hmm.
right? Somebody's going to move. And as the adaptive leader and as the leader who can hold up the mirror and say, okay, well, what I tried to do isn't working.
Hmm.
Let me try this other approach. So in the paradox of resistance, if you refuse to move off of your spot to try to move somebody who's refusing to move
Yes.
off their spot, who's really being resistant?
Yeah.
That's the question I have for you as a leader is if you're refusing to change your technique, your approach, or the way that you lead or adapt to what this person is presenting in front of you, then you too are resistant. And I've never thought about that.
I want to say a couple things, and this is just something I talk about all the time. Yes, one thing I in my language, I'm very particular about saying people experiencing resistance and not resistant people, resistant teachers, because the moment we label someone resistant, we keep them the very thing we don't want them to be, right? And it's an experience we move through, like happiness, sadness, resistance. I move through it. And the other thing is a main way that we resist other people's resistance is our shoulds. They should be doing this, they
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing that. And we sit in our shoulds and it gets and we're shoulding everywhere and making a mess and it
Yes.
gets real stinky and I should on myself and I should on other people, right? And we sit in our shoulds and we are resisting their resistance. And what we resist persists.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, well, first of all, I like your language of experiencing resistance because it's not a permanent state.
Hmm.
Um, but I also appreciate what resists persists,
Yeah,
where like one of us is going to have to move off our spot.
yeah,
And as the person who has the privilege of serving as your leader, that's my job.
yeah,
I've got
yeah,
to be the one to come off my spot. It's
yeah.
not about, well, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree. Like, no,
No.
that's not good enough.
Yeah, it's not. And what I like to say is we want to shift from our shoulds to support, or even from my shoulds to could. What could I do to support them?
Yeah.
Right. And that's all it is. It's shifting from shoulds are statements and support and coulds are questions.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of they should be doing this, how could I support them? Time's
I
up.
like that music. It's not an annoying like alarm bell going off.
No, no, no. I like this. Feels like the Oscars, like they're gonna like take the cane and
Yes.
and pull us off. I want to wrap up this conversation about resistance because I am the queen of resistance. I want to say this: resistance is a compass and not a dead end. And I think you alluded to that before, and that's it. And it points to people's unmet needs. And how do we figure out people's unmet needs? The catalyst mindsets. If you want to know more about the catalyst mindsets, I'll put a one pager in the show notes. Um, but but that's it. It's simple, not easy, but it's simple. We want to diagnose the resistance and give people what they need.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Chris?
No, I love that. Resistance is a compass, not a dead end. Beautiful. I
Yeah.
hope that's in your book.
It'll be like a full page quote.
You need to get a copyright on that.
I will. All right, Chris, we have one more debate on the books. Everyone tuning in that love this debate, tune in 2 weeks. We have our other debate, and it's about the importance of which is more important, consistency or adaptability, and do they get in the way of each other? All right, see you in 2 weeks.